I'd like to call the January 20th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Tonight on the agenda, we have one public hearing, one letter of recommendation, two information reports, one site development plan, and one preliminary plat. Can I get a roll call of commission members, please?
Commissioner Helfrey.
Here.
Commissioner Cohn. Commissioner Clayton. Commissioner Depler.
Here.
Commissioner Depler is here via Zoom. Commissioner Jackson.
Here.
Commissioner Rubis.
Here.
Commissioner Boren.
Here.
Mr. Boren's also here via Zoom. Chair Beatty.
Here.
Councilmember Marshall.
Present.
And Mayor Garitano. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Can I get an approval of the minutes from December 1st, please? Motion by Commissioner Helfrey, second by Councilman Marshall. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. Does the Department of Planning have any opening comments?
No, sir. Just other than Mr. Young is not available tonight, so Sarah Rutherford is acting as city attorney, and she is via Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mayor Garitano had something he wanted to mention before we get started.
Yes, thank you very much, and good evening to everyone here tonight, especially with the cold weather that we're having. I did want to just share some insight because I know we have a public hearing for tonight on a topic that may be of interest to some folks regarding data centers. And just so you are aware, we do not have any proposal for any data center before the city at this time. This is the city's motto of planning tomorrow, today. It goes back 30 years. Our city was founded where we developed a master plan, and we also developed a town center plan. And so therefore, with regulations, we're able to manage the growth of our city. So I just wanted to make sure you're aware of that, because if you do have questions, we may not have answers because we don't have any proposal. We're just trying to be proactive rather than be reactive. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Eric, may I say something?
Sure.
So my name is Scott Jackson. I want to be full transparent. My company is a Fortune 500 company. We sell a lot into data center on the infrastructure like data, electrical equipment. My responsibility for the company is broadband and fiber optics, so interconnection, so long haul fiber to wherever. That does include data center. I don't know where this is going. Obviously, they're getting ahead of everything, but I want to be fully transparent with everyone. I may have to recuse myself if there's any action taken just from an ethical perspective, or maybe not, but I wanted everyone to know that. And if we're out in the hall and you want to ask me how things are built and what goes on in the world, I'm happy to give my 2 cents. It's my job.
Thank you. All right. So now we'll go into the public comment session. This is not the time for the public hearing, which is the data center, but anything else on the agenda, if you wish to speak, now is the time to speak on it. And if you would like, bring a comment card up to Travis, Mr. Newberry here, and he will call you in as it's your turn to speak. And as a reminder, if you're representing yourself, you have 3 minutes to speak. If you're representing a group, you have 5 minutes to speak. So, Mr. Newberry.
Mr. Chair, the first speaker is Ms. Link.
Lynn Link,
Better.
Ward 6. Many of us here tonight have been objecting to the Latitude N38 project since the summer of 2023. Density was just one of the many issues, along with lack of parking, asbestos abatement on existing structures, and even resident complaints on other Benton properties of poor quality and poor maintenance. Water runoff was also an issue, and the fact that the development's new proposal had an outflow of the detention areas emptying onto our new village green says a lot about what they think of our community. Since this project was first proposed, our city council has approved the luxury multi-story 188 1, 2, and 3 bedroom unit mixed-use commercial space, allowing a reduction in existing per-unit parking requirements only about a block away. On appeal, less than a year ago, the developer told us that 55 was the minimum amount of units on the luxury villas and that he could have in order to make the numbers work. Evidently, that was less than truthful because he now proposes 10 less. You cannot justify allowing higher density by saying other nearby developments are already dense. Clearly, there is always a synergistic adverse effect when adding additional high-density development to an area, which should limit further development. Proper civic planning must consider and limit future developments to mitigate those effects on existing residents and our environment. All high-density development stresses the environment and existing infrastructure for the residents already living there. It's understated truth to say that not all development is beneficial to our community and that all development, especially development which increases density and impermeable surface, has an adverse impact on our existing residents and our shared environment. Throughout Wildwood, we have seen the effects of development in the form of increased water runoff, erosion, sinking land, and sinkholes opening up, including an entire lake being drained in a little over a day. Having the vision to see the adverse effects of unchecked development 30 years ago, area residents made tremendous effort to incorporate so that those who are elected and appointed into our municipal offices could preserve the beauty of Wildwood and to protect our home from the developers who would be willing to destroy it just to make a profit. Countless residents complain about the direction that our city is taking. When you eventually vote on this, I ask that you reflect on who you are here to represent and what your authority and purpose are and the tremendous amount of effort it took to provide you with that authority. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mrs. Byrd.
Good evening. I'm Joan Byrd, and I'm the property owner and resident at 2725 Christie Avenue. And we are attempting to build a go to Bendick Estates. And someone has asked that we have a wastewater treatment plant. And I'm really against that, as is evidenced by what has gone on at Big Chief, and they have that, and it smells terrible. I've raised my 5 children. My brother has raised his 4 children, all on this same property. We've always had septic tanks and well water, and we've never had a problem. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mr. Basler.
Hello, I'm Tom Bosler. I'm also involved in the Bendick Estates property. My business partner, we are going to be the sales team representing the builder on that development, and we are also in favor of having individual septic systems. The sewage treatment facility is going to be unsightly. If that system goes down, it affects the other proposed 13 homeowners all at one time. The individual system seems to make a lot more sense. Our understanding is the soil is conducive to having individual septic systems, and we feel that will be in the best interest of the homeowners there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mr. Hill.
Good evening. I'm Jonathan Hill, Ward 1, also owner of JGH Building Group, representing Hills Hollow Estates. I'm just here to answer any questions you may have when we get to that part of the agenda.
Okay,
Thank you.
And the next speaker is Mr. Kraus.
Good evening, members of the commission. I'm Mike Kraus. My mother-in-law is Mrs. Byrd, who just spoke. She's the property owner for Bendick Estates. I'll be involved, obviously, with this project pretty deeply, and I'm here just to voice my opposition to a wastewater treatment plant. Certainly in favor of the individual septic systems per resident. residential structure. I have personal experience managing a small wastewater plant, and the wastewater plants that are smaller are actually more problematic than larger ones. In a lot of cases, the problem is that they don't get enough use. And so with variable use and residential application like this, I just foresee more problems than is probably necessary. And I also echo my mother-in-law's comments. It's unsightly, and everyone knows what sewer gas smells like. It's H2S. It's terrible. It smells like rotten eggs, and that happens when the bacteria that's put into those systems diminishes or dies. And the reason it dies is because of a lack of natural bacteria coming in through waste. In any case, I just wanted to make sure that we were able to be heard this evening, and you could hear my opinion on that. And I hope that you take that into consideration when you vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mr. Miller.
Good evening. My name is Scott Miller. I live at 18951 Hart Road, and I'm here because I received a postcard that you're considering a small storefront for the nursery on St. Albans Road. And I just wanted to express my support for that store, and I don't have any problems with it. So you asked for input. There's your input. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mr. Summers. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Summers, and we have the perfect lead-in, unplanned, as my family and I recently purchased that nursery on St. Albans Road, and our proposal is to use the property as it's been used for 70 years, including the storefront that was there. So that's my introduction in a nutshell. We're here for questions or comments.
Thank you for your comment.
The next speaker is Mr. Whalen.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, members of the commission. I just wanted to offer just a quick word about the request for the
Name
Bendick
and
Estates.
address. I know who you are, but for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mike Whalen, 640 Thorntree Lane. Forgive me.
Thank you.
I just wanted to respectfully request that, number one, I'm here to answer any questions, and I would appreciate it if I got an opportunity to. We would like to offer the same structure that we did for our West Eden development with a couple of modifications to maybe manage the risk a little bit better of wastewater treatment individual systems to make sure that they're running properly. We would like to offer doubling our escrow that we did from about $2,600 to about $5,000 per unit to go into an escrow account managed by the homeowners association. And with West Eden, we require all of the homeowners to provide a proof of inspection and maintenance of their system every 2 years to the HOA. For Bendick Estates, we would like to propose that it's mandated, and we would like to centralize that inspection function and have the homeowners association contract with one waste treatment professional organization to inspect all the systems, to provide whatever maintenance is required, and to fund that maintenance out of that escrow. We feel like that more than manages and mitigates the risk of individual treatment systems, and is certainly a much better alternative than a single potential problems that could arise from a single point of failure that could occur with a centralized waste treatment system. It's also a lot easier for a homeowner association to manage. So love to talk about it more if we get the opportunity. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, if I could, just before I call the last speaker in the audience tonight here in person, if someone's online and wishes to speak during the general public comment session, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom. Thank you. And the next speaker here in person is Mr. Hart.
My name's Rich Hart, 18721 Highway T. And I just want to say that the 55 acres they were proposing for a subdivision of 16 homes. I know that land probably better than anybody in St. Louis County. I farmed it, worked with my father, my grandfather, and since I'm 81, so it's not that 167 years, but actually owned that field for over 140, and I spent a lot of time in it. Number one, there's not going to be any building on the south side of the creek because it's just totally not there. You're not going to be building in the creek. So the Department of Agriculture always told us that land was basically 30 tillable acres. In that tillable acres are at least 2 springs that never get farmed or wet weather all the time. So you take that out of the equation. So now you're down to about 20 something acres and you're proposing 16 homes on that, which is way too dense for anything going on. Now they say that creek is not in floodplain. I can tell you it is. And our family spent days, including me. They were real anal about it. Every time a tree came down in that creek, it got cut out of there and it flowed. We chained in and cabled in cedar trees to keep the erosion down. There's like quite a few culverts that come underneath Highway T that run down through that field, and they're identified, and you can see where those springs are because there's never anything planted in them. It's just planted around it. You'll get stuck. Your equipment will get stuck when you get in there. So what I'm saying is that you're not looking at 55 acres. You're looking at about 28 that you could actually use. Then there's been archaeological digs there. Professors from Rolla, now it's S&T. It used to be Rolla School of Mines. They used to bring classes up there, the professors. There's a lot of Indian burial grounds that I've always been told about, but it's always been a real glean for finding Indian artifacts. I didn't buy it at the time. I own everything on the other side of the highway, so I'm going to be the one most impacted to look at it. And I just think it's a beautiful valley. Why does people want to look at a bunch of asphalt shingles when they could be looking at a pretty nice valley? And I'm against it. And to support the Indian question, I've found a lot of things, but back when the property got sold out of my family,
1 minute.
There was some underground cable guy came to me and he said, we started to put in an underground cable and we ran into two Indian burial grounds, and he wanted to know what I knew about it. And I says, I don't know where they are. I've always been told they're there. And he says, I'm not fooling with it. We're pulling out. And that was the last I ever heard of it. So there is proof to this stuff. And I don't know how many culverts cross T underneath, but when you have a watershed that goes from 100, everything south of Hart Road all the way down comes through that field when it rains. It's a lot of water. Believe me, I know. So that's all I got to say. I don't think it's the right spot for what it is.
All right. Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair, the first speaker on Zoom is Ms. Henson.
Hello, everyone. Tracy from 2708 Questover Canyon Drive, Ward 6. I am sorry I can't be there in person. I was just nursing a wound on my horse. Anyways, I was also here to talk about the Lombardo home property development along Highway T. I recently met with a former DNR, Missouri DNR worker, and she talked about how the department is incredibly overfunded. All they really can do is like go and tell you some things. They don't have any funding or development to fix anything. With septic tanks close to that creek, which overflows, I'm very worried that we're going to have a stream that normally runs clear start to overflow with sewage, like something you'd see in the city. That area is a like he had mentioned, like the man before me mentioned, is a drain field. Like there's a lot of water that comes down it. We've had well documented floods on that creek, but because it is unnamed, it puts us in sort of a limbo and at the mercy of planning and zoning, because an unnamed creek is kind of not really cared about by the Missouri Department of Natural Resources or Conservation. So because it's unnamed, it won't get any additional resources. I'm very worried of what septic overflow and other additional problems could cause along close to that waterway. In addition, we also have a risk here along our plain. When we have earthquakes, our ground is a little bit more unsettled because of our high water table here. For example, my sump pump in the basement runs every 5 to 10 minutes, even in conditions like this. When we have an earthquake, we feel it a little more than everywhere else because our ground is so unstable. I watch as my pipes move, and we've had to redig our pipes multiple times now since I've only lived here for 5 years. But with the drastic flooding we've had, our ground moves. I'm very worried about something along without proper research what something in that ground on the other side of the water, the other side of the creek will do, because my side's more stable than the other side, and the other side has to be, you know, much more loose. I can tell from my pasture, but my pasture doesn't have anything under. It's just a barn on top of anything with no piping. So please do consider us and our unnamed creek as something that could be a potential problem for erosion and overflow, and something that Missouri doesn't have money to fix. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker on Zoom doesn't have a name identified, but I will promote them in. They'll just accept the prompt.
All right. State your name and first you're muted, but unmute yourself.
Okay, my name is Catherine Bendick Sutton, and my Joan Bird is my aunt, and I just want to talk about the Bendick Estates property. I just wanted to reiterate what my aunt has already said, and the rest of my family, that we have occupied that property as a family for over 100 years. There's 2 properties remaining on this land, one of which is my childhood home. And I lived there for over 20 years. I grew up, we had individual septic and we had well water, and we never had an issue. And I just want to reiterate that I'm adamantly opposed to the centralized water treatment plant because of the smell and the unsightliness of it. And that's all.
Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair, if you'll just give me one moment. Mr. Larson will be next.
Brian Larson, 2901 Country Point Court. Here to talk again about the subdivision along Highway T, and to reiterate what I said last time, as well as what Tracy just alluded to. I'm very concerned about the septic tank locations. I also think that a central treatment plant may be a problem. So I'm concerned both about the density of the homes and as was alluded to, because much of the land is not suitable for the homes themselves, including what's south of the creek, and because of the creek itself and in the spring and all the water that is there, which also makes it very unsuitable for some of the septic tanks that would be in each of those those lots. So that in general, just that's the biggest concern. I don't know that there's a good solution on either doing the individual septics or a centralized treatment plant in that space. That's pretty much all I have.
All right. Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair, the department does not have any additional speaker comments for the general public comment session, and is not seeing any additional hands raised on Zoom.
Sounds good. All right. In that case, we will go ahead and close the public comment session and start the public hearing. In the city of Wildwood, public hearings are truly intended to accept comments and questions concerning this posted item. Since this request is being held at a public hearing, no action is planned on this item tonight, and consideration of it is to be taken no earlier than the February 2026 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. This approach ensures the members of the commission will hear all opinions before taking any action. The city's Department of Planning will address the comments, questions, and concerns that are raised tonight and include them as part of its formal recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Anyone in attendance at City Hall tonight wanting to speak should fill out a speaker's card and leave it with Mr. Newberry. Those in attendance via the Zoom webinar platform should use the raise hand feature to indicate you wish to speak at the hearing. A team member will add you to the list of speakers, which will then be communicated to me as chair, and I will invite you to speak when it is your turn. The public hearing process is outlined in the public hearing guidelines pamphlet, which can be found on the table at the entry area to the council chambers. The commission will allow all parties adequate time to present their position. As outlined in the public hearing guidelines pamphlet, those individuals representing themselves will be allocated 3 minutes to speak. Speakers who are designated as a group speaker representing a group of more than 5 individuals will be allocated 5 minutes to speak. In addition, information on these items can be found on the city's website at www.cityofwildwood.com. The commission would like to thank you for your cooperation and participation at tonight's hearing. All right, so look back. All right, so PZ 1-26, Mr. Newberry.
PZ 1-26, City of Wildwood Planning and Zoning Commission, care of Department of Planning, Wildwood City Hall, 16860 Main Street, Wildwood, Missouri 63040. A request to consider amendments to Chapter 415 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Wildwood to regulate and restrict the use of land for operational facilities commonly referred to as information technology and data processing facilities or data centers, and establishing specific performance standards to address potential adverse impacts, including noise pollution, utility infrastructure demands, visual aesthetics, and environmental footprints, and other matters relating to the general health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the city, and other matter related thereto, all wards.
All right, thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I'd like to first reiterate what Mayor Garritano mentioned. The City of Wildwood, via its Department of Planning, has not received any inquiries relating to data centers. However, it's very difficult not to turn on the television and watch the news, pick up a magazine or newspaper, or review anything on the internet where data centers are not mentioned. Tonight, there's hearings across the region relating to data centers. And so it is a use that must be addressed in the opinion of the department before it is upon us versus, in this case, being proactive. In preparation of tonight's public hearing, the department did prepare a primer for discussion purposes. In that particular item, the department does recognize that data centers do have a place in modern society based upon artificial intelligence, or AI. However, those locations, in the opinion of the department, may not be anywhere in Wildwood, and therefore, if there are locations, we need to identify them and direct such to them. In the primer, the department does note that it appears that data center developers are looking for large tracts of ground in or near appropriate utility networks. The department does note in that primer that our non-urban resident district does have a great deal of larger tracts of land that are nearby or abutting to of the utility networks. However, the department does believe that since 1995, when the non-urban district became the non-urban resident district, protections exist. However, those same protections we thought that existed for telecommunications, towers, home-based businesses, and others were ultimately whittled away or reduced by the federal and state governments. So to be, again, proactive in this regard, the Master Plan Committee that is updating that document thought it imperative that a public hearing be held by the Planning and Zoning Commission and that changes or regulations be added to address this matter sooner than later. The department would note that the city does have an industrial area. It's identified in our master plan as part of the 4 major land use categories. It is the Wildwood portion of the Chesterfield Valley. As you know, the city of Wildwood has maintained that industrial character, approving fixed supply services, recently Kurtz Landscaping, and many smaller businesses off of Centaur Road. The department has been advised by the city attorney that prohibiting them outright may be difficult, but however, we can regulate them to the point to address the concerns that have been identified relative to noise pollution, utility infrastructure demands, visual aesthetics, environmental footprints, and lighting in many ways. So tonight, it is the first step in this process to ensure that the non-urban resident district areas of Wildwood, the rural areas, are protected, and in the opinion of the department, direct any potential data center to the industrial area of the city. And as part of that, ensure that the process, whether it be the M3 plan district with a conditional use permit or the M3 plan district by onto itself, have enough protections to ensure that if such has to be considered, it is considered in light of the general health, safety, and welfare of our residents and property owners. There will be a great deal of information developed over the course of the next few weeks. Our city attorney, John Young, has firsthand experience with these. As I mentioned, there are hearings going on in St. Charles County tonight and Warren County relating to this particular item. And they are dealing with them in sort of their not proactive approach, but reactive approach. And certainly, again, we are here to head it off and do the best we can to preserve Wildwood as more of a natural character community than one that is populated by data centers and other uses that are not necessarily appropriate for this community. So again, tonight with the public hearing, Mr. Newberry, Ms. Ripito, and I will be taking the comments down. We'll address the comments as best we can. And certainly when we prepare a recommendation report, we'll do our very best to limit impacts of these types of uses in the city. If there are any questions at this time from the commission members, the department would be glad to try to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vinich. Commissioner Helfrey.
Thank you, Mr. Vinich, for that explanation. As you know, I was one of the people that was very vocal about, let's get ahead of this. So in order to prepare for the meeting tonight, I watched a lot of videos and news and did a lot of research. And so as you say, you're getting ready to prepare for the coming weeks, I had some notes that I was hoping that we could address. When I look at the pros and cons of this, pretty basically the pros of these come out to money. No big surprise there. The cons were quite extensive. And so a couple questions I would like addressed when you do the research, if you wouldn't mind, would be if we can keep them to the industrial center, that would be fantastic. And then if we do, can we keep it? One of the complaints that I heard over and over again from people in towns with data centers was the constant hum, because there's so much energy that's being used, the backup generators and HVA systems and stuff. So if there's a way that we could somehow put a buffer around them to where they're not within a certain amount of feet or miles of people's homes. And as far as the infrastructure, I don't know how you address that. Another problem is that these data centers seem to pay for their own electric use, but they don't pay for the upgrades necessary for the infrastructures. The little guy pays for that. And I am a little guy and I don't want to pay for that. So if I don't know if we can address that or not. And then one of the questions that I have is if it gets to the point where the industrial area of Wildwood no longer has space available, then what? I mean, is it just that's it? It's done? Because we work so hard to making sure that homes aren't built on ridge lines and, we're protecting our resources, and we're having conversations this evening about creeks and, watersheds and all those things. I would sure like them to not be able to say, well, there's no room in the industrial area. Let's go ahead and see what we can do, and have somebody in the state government or the federal government then tell us what's best for us. So I don't know how we can address those things, but those are the things I was hoping that maybe you could address when you do your research. Thank you.
Certainly, and not at a scale of a data center. From the photographs and information that the department's reviewed, they're generally pretty substantial developments with multiple buildings, a lot of impervious surfaces, et cetera. But the city has already set a pattern relative to certain uses. The first was medical marijuana sales. And as you recall, there was a lot of input from our residents and others about not having them in town center. And so we accommodate them in the industrial area of Wildwood. Same for vape shops and tattoos parlors. We moved them down to the industrial area. More recently, we've now added just general sales of marijuana. They are a considered use in the industrial area of Wildwood. And early on, we put sexually explicit businesses down in the industrial area of Wildwood. So I think in the past, we've done this. We've offered an available location in the community to accommodate that type of use. According to our city attorney in past discussions with the Planning and Zoning Commission, he says, in general, you can't prohibit them, but you have to provide a location for them. I think our industrial area will achieve that. Certainly, the department is leading toward creating a conditional use in the M3 planned industrial district. So remember, the M3 planned industrial district is a site-specific ordinance with specific conditions tailored to the potential use as submitted by the developer of the project. The conditional use permit gives us extra authority because the conditional use permit requires the burden of the authorization not falling on the city, but onto the developer. The developer has to basically say, this meets your criteria. The city doesn't have to do that. And that's a big distinction because it gives us the ability to stand back and view their rationales, not necessarily us developing rationales why it should or shouldn't be there. Mr. Lee and I had a conversation with Mr. Young, our city attorney, this morning, and at the last legislative session in Missouri, they actually passed a Senate bill that requires data centers to carry the cost of any utility upgrades, not the other consumers or customers of that utility provider. So the states kind of address that issue for us. And from the perspective of the department, over the course of time, particularly in town center, we've said we have 3 convenience stores with gas pumps and car washes. And when we updated the town center plan first in 2008 and subsequently in 2018, we said that was enough. There are location, there are a use, and we don't need to provide more. So I'll lean on that as we move forward. It's not to say we have to perpetually provide a location. We provided a location if somebody submitted, got approval and developed, well, that's to their benefit, not yours. Just because you're late to the game doesn't mean we have to accommodate you elsewhere. And we'll work on that very hard. Saying all of that, it all could fall by the wayside if the federal and state governments step in and say, you've got to accommodate them and do what they've done with telecommunications and home-based businesses and everything else that you all deal with on a day-to-day basis when we have those things come forward. But we'll do our best, and thanks for the input.
Mayor Garitano?
Yeah, I do have some comments, but I'd like to just check to see, Chair, do you want to let the public go ahead speak first and then we can have discussion, or?
I'm fine doing it either way, so.
Yeah, let's have members of the public speak and then we can certainly comment afterwards. Thank you.
With that, Mr. Chair, the first speaker is Ms. Link.
Lynn Link, Ward 6. Effective restrictive municipal codes and strict penalties, which must be severe enough to deter even trillion-dollar companies, along with enforcement, enables local governments to protect its citizens. The Missouri Supreme Court has already confirmed municipal authority to deny conditional use permits for any reason. Many municipalities and states are in the process of taking measurements to limit or prohibit data centers, primarily through their ordinance or law on air, sound, and light pollution. Because of our unique rural nature, public lands, and thousands of households on restrictive ordinance, especially limiting pollution, electric, and water consumption, is imperative. In addition to noise and light pollution, data centers are increasingly associated with health risks for both their workers and those living near them, from emissions linked to cancer, respiratory, and cardiovascular disease, along with water contamination of heavy metals and forever chemicals. According to OSHA, their cooling towers have even been linked to Legionnaire's disease. Data centers consume massive amounts of water for cooling systems to keep computers from overheating. Most experts say that water consumption from data centers is grossly underestimated, as well water consumption is not measured by an outside source. According to the Environmental and Energy Study Institute, smaller and medium-sized data centers can consume as much water as a town of 10,000 people, while larger centers can consume up to 5 million gallons a day, which is the water consumption of a town of 50,000 people. In an area using municipal water, this means dramatically lowered water pressure and higher water bills for area residents. In rural areas, where the data centers use well water, massive consumption of water results in reduced or depleted aquifers, concentrating existing toxins in the groundwater, resulting in poisoned or emptied wells. Data centers provide very few long-term jobs. Proponents will tell you that using closed loop or oil cooling systems can reduce water reduction up to 70%. Even if that were true, that would mean that the data center would still use 1.5 million gallons or more of water per day. According to the Electrical Power Research Institute, Virginia's data centers consume 26% of their state's electricity. The higher consumption forces power companies to increase their infrastructure to avoid grid failures. The PMJ, who manages the grid for 67 million East Coast residents, warns that it may have to implement power outages during periods of extreme cold or heat. As most receive substantial tax abatements, the best way to keep our residents safe is not to be using our tax dollars for corporate welfare. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Ms. Canby.
Hi, I'm Tracy Canby. I live in LaSalle Woods, been in Wildwood about 10 years. Like Ms. Helfrey decided to do my homework and research this because unfortunately my husband's out speaking in Franklin County as we're affected by that one as well. We have some property out there. So the more we read, the more we didn't like, the noise, the drag on the utilities, the wildlife was something that really concerned me. And then, as Ms. Link said, the negative impacts on the health of the residents. Money was the only positive that I found. Everything else was a negative. I feel like Wildwood has set the bar high. It's been that way since I moved here. That's one of the reasons I'm here. The green space, the wildwood, or the wildlife, it's a good place to raise families. And where we live in the woods, it's quiet. We like it that way. We want it to stay that way. I've heard from a lot of people that live near these things, what they say about the decibels is not what happens. My neighbor had to get rid of her rooster because he crowed too loud. And somebody came out and measured the decibels and said it was a noise violation. Wildwood sets the bar high. So I feel like this shouldn't be any different. As Miss Link said, restrict, restrict, restrict. I don't think Wildwood is a place for a data center at all. But if we can relegate it to the industrial areas and keep it away from our homes, preserve our property value, preserve our health, preserve our wildlife. I mean, that's what I love about living here. That's where I think we need to be. So I just came out to kind of take the temperature of my community, see where we're at. I want to be involved. I want to help. I'll help speak out against it, but I also want to be educated on what the data center brings and what other people think the positives are. So that's why I'm here. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mr. Cooper. Thank you, Mr. Cooper passed. The next speaker is Ms. Piccolo.
Hi, folks. Hi, Mr. Chair and Mayor Gaetano. I can't say it right. Mayor Gaetano
There you go.
and council. I'm happy to be here this evening, and I want to thank the mayor right off because I just found out about this about a day ago, so I haven't had a long time to prepare. I would have had much more info if it had longer, but I want to thank you for responding right away on Facebook. That was amazing, and it was very effective, and I liked what you put in the letter. It was good. I have concerns. I do understand the pro is money, but if you have money and you don't have your health and your way of life, does the money matter? Okay. So I would like to bring up some other points. I don't know about you, but I really can't afford an increase in property taxes, sales tax, utility bills like water, electric, natural gas, sewer, wastewater. And then there's the problem of the noise pollution. You were asking about buffering. I'm not an expert in this area yet, but from what I've read, I don't think you can buffer it. It's not like that. It doesn't travel like that, but I'm sure you could probably maybe help a little bit, but in general, no, not really. And then there is an increase with things like tinnitus with it. Who wants tinnitus? Anybody here have tinnitus already? It's a horrible thing. Horrible, right? Okay, you wouldn't wish it on anybody. There's an increase in our financial responsibility if this goes through. We'll need more police, more EMTs, we'll need more fire, all kinds of different things. The aesthetics of Wildwood will never be the same. And the even feel of it. I don't know if anybody's sensitive enough to notice it, but when you start out at maybe 141 in Manchester and you drive out Manchester Road, I can feel the energy is much better and cleaner out here. Anybody else notice that? The whole area is calmer. Okay, so general health will be affected. It may lower taxes. Lower the property value, I meant to say, I'm sorry. We're also looking at an increase of risk of fire and electrical hazard, danger to human life, animal life, the ecosystem, and property. And I feel so sorry for the Mountain Franklin because they're battling tonight. They want to put the data center next, 5 minutes, I have a coalition. They're battling, putting it next to the nature reserve. The nature reserve moved out there like 100 years ago to get away from this type of stuff. And now they're battling that. Okay, there could be power outages. Well, what do you think is going to happen with the power outages? All you people here that decided or let a smart meter in your home, what happens with those? They can flip the switch and turn your power off. I opted out, okay? They can turn it off and eventually it's been in the newspapers. They plan on raising all your rates depending on what time you use your electricity. But they probably also foresaw about the data centers and they can flip you off whenever they want. I didn't mean the pun. Okay, sorry. The mere presence of data centers opens you up to a possibility of, well, data breaches and let's just say other stuff. I don't want to go too dark here. The EMF increases diseases like cancer, especially gliomas of the brain, which are absolutely horrendous. Sleep dysregulation, anxiety, fatigue, oxidative stress, cognitive decline, DNA damage, variation of heart rate. I get 5 minutes. Is that what you said?
Joe.
I have more than 5. Correct.
All right, then 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm going. Okay, dysregulation, anxiety, fatigue, oxidative stress, cognitive decline, and so forth. There can be waterborne diseases. I think somebody else mentioned that, like Legionnaires. You've got contaminated water cooling off nasty systems, and then where is that water going to? There'll be an increase probably in traffic. So we already tried to vote down having another highway go through here, right? Well, you would need that if the data center is built. You'll have an increase in the draining of our water sources. What about people who live off of a well? It's going to literally suck Wildwood dry. Okay. Here's my thoughts for the council, because you're all human beings and probably have homes and families that you love. Okay, if you go forward with something and you guys don't do due diligence, people that are harmed physically with their health or things catch on fire, whatever happens, they could come back and sue the council and the city of Wildwood. And there's been cities that have already gone bankrupt over that. It's not funny. Nobody wants our city to go bankrupt or to give you guys in some kind of peril. If you can have the applicant show that they're following the federal law, the NEPA, and the FCC specs to prove that this will not pollute the environment, and can they please provide anywhere in the United States after 5 years after a data center being built that it did not cause any harm to the grid, the ecosystem, humans, and other life forms. You really kind of want to put that maybe in the ordinance to protect you. Make them do safety research and document everything that it's fine to go before you guys ever commit to any of it. I would be changing ordinances. You have a right to do so, right? Yes? No? Well, do it. Protect yourselves. Okay? So anyway, I love Wildwood. I love my country. I love God. I love Wildwood, and I hope Wildwood remains beautiful like it is. I hope a year from now I still say I love Wildwood.
All right, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, before calling the last speaker again, that I have here in the council chambers, I'll again instruct that if someone wants to speak on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature. The next speaker here in person is Mr. Baker.
Hello, Stephen Baker, Ward 4. I have worked in IT for decades, and I have been in data centers. I have seen what they do. There's a lot to be considered in doing this. But one of the things that I don't hear a lot about is what happens if you incur the ire of some of these companies that want to have a data center in your community? Are you prepared to have an adversarial vendor working with you? These would be the people like Meta and others that could say, oh, we don't like you today. We're going to turn you off. We're going to take your data. So as you're making your plans, consider what you have to do in order to insulate yourselves from an adversarial vendor. I'm not going to delve too deeply in all the other subjects, but there's a lot of negatives that come along with the data center. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, we do have a speaker with their hand raised on Zoom, Mr. Larson. Just give me a moment.
Brian Larson, 2901 Country Point Court, to speak about the data center issue. As the previous speaker just alluded to, I am also an IT professional and have worked in data centers for many, many decades, about 35 years. So I have some experience with both what they're like, what the impacts are, and of course the growing need with AI. I think essentially there is an issue of, NIMBY, not in my backyard, but also specifically in Wildwood, we have some unique challenges. And so I wanted to speak to those. I do recognize that legally we may need to provide spots similar to what we talked about, and of course, probably the industrial area would be that spot if we had to provide them. However, we need to consider a couple key things that were mentioned. How our water was mentioned, but I believe that power is, it wasn't emphasized enough. I want to note that Labadie power plant is the second dirtiest power plant in all of the US, based on, if you look at carbon dioxide, or it's near the highest in, I think it's the highest in sulfur as well. And it's doesn't have any of the modern pollution controls on it. So pushing that power plant further will have direct impacts on the Wildwood community. It's cheap power, but it's very, very dirty power. In addition to the water issue being near the river and in areas that are near flooding, is another issue in terms of the water, extreme water use of data centers. I recognize they have to be somewhere. I don't think that our city is a good fit, however, for them. That's all I have.
1 minute. Oh, all right. Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the department has not received any additional speaker cards here in the council chambers, and no one during Mr. Larson's speaking raised their hand as well on Zoom.
Sounds good. All right. Any other comments from the commission?
Travis, just an, testing audio, testing audio.
Test from the audio from the far end on the speaker here. Can you test your microphone and speak into the chambers?
This is a test, test audio, test, test. Testing audio, test, test. You catching that, Travis?
Start it again once, and there's Commissioner Helfrey.
Testing
Thanks.
audio, test, test. Travis, can you confirm?
Keep going, Tim.
Testing audio, test, test. Testing audio, test, test.
Once more, Tim.
Testing audio, test, test.
All right.
Thank you.
We appear to be back on Zoom, so we're gonna get going here and again in a minute. And for everyone that is on Zoom, we did pause the meeting during the outage, so you haven't missed any conversation. So just want to make you aware of that.
Well done, Travis.
Well, first of all, with the permission of the chair,
Go ahead.
thanks to everyone for your patience. We've been doing Zoom since the pandemic, and this is the first time we've experienced something like that here in the council chambers. So our apologies and thanks again for being patient and waiting with us to get the system back up and running.
All
I
right.
believe Mr. Jackson was going to make a comment, and we concluded before he could.
Oh, that's fine. I think the audience and others have covered most of the thing. The challenges, I would say, to building data centers, like the water for cooling and where does that go? But they did touch on the power. That's a problem. And when you're doing your research on ordinances, it's not just about waiting for, say, an Ameren or someone to build the power. They build their own plants. And some of those are natural gas, among other types of power plants. And that requires massive amounts of storage for the fuel, and they keep moving them in. And then once the power is built up and et cetera, they could relocate those to another project or whatever. I would just say when you're researching your stuff, I just wanted to point out there is other methods of power along those lines too to look at. Thanks.
Thank you. Also, I've been advised that data centers come in all shapes and sizes. And so I will advise the Planning and Zoning Commission will cover all of them from the smallest to the largest. And again, from the department's perspective, best location, if there is a location in Wildwood, will be the industrial area from the perspective of the department as it presents options to the commission.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Rich. Commissioner. All right. Go ahead, Commissioner Lewis.
You know,
And then
in
Mr. Lee, I saw your hand up. I'll come to you next.
in listening to everybody here, I think the consensus was that the only positive for a data center was money. Other than the seller of the property, who else is on the receiving end of this money? Wildwood doesn't have a property tax, but would we get money from their utility tax?
Certainly, unless it's the situation that Mr. Jackson explained, they bring their own power system to the project and don't connect to the public grid. But yes, our gross receipts tax would apply.
So that would be the only positive that we.
Well, certainly there's some type of business licensing that would be involved, although that's a nominal amount relative to other taxes and charges. But like I say, we'll do our research before we prepare a report. I'm thinking the more we talked and the comments that have been provided may not be in a couple of weeks that we're prepared to present. But certainly by March, we hope to be in a position to provide good information to the commission to make the best decision.
All right, Commissioner Helfrey, she has one quick statement, then I'll come to you.
Mr. Vunich, when you're planning all of the information for us, could you please come up with a definition of what a data center is?
Yes, and I think our city attorney will be integral in that, given his background. So yes, we'll define it as we do in a lot of our changes to the zoning ordinance. Oftentimes, we advertise them for the definition section as well, because the definitions are the devil in the detail.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Lee.
Thank you. I just wanted to add a couple comments too, and just doing a little bit of research on this, especially Senate Bill 4, which is pertinent to this, that its intent was to pretty much make it so when one of these data centers comes in, it would not increase the cost when building out infrastructure to the residents that live nearby if they're drawing from the main grid. I just wanted to point out that there are some provisions in there that would need further study, and the department will plan to do just that. One being this difference between like a mega load bearing data center and a non-mega load bearing one. It sets some type of definition of 100 megawatts that they have to consume in order to have these provisions start being enforced. So that said, if it's under that 100 megawatts, they can technically, pass those infrastructure costs. So there's a lot of research to be done here. I just wanted to emphasize and also put kind of reflect what the mayor and also Mr. Vunich has mentioned tonight, just that we do not have any inquiries currently at this time. This is more so as a proactive measure like we've done in the past with some other similar hot topics across the U.S. And also I did just want to answer to the revenue side. There really isn't all too much other than the 5% gross receipts you would have. There wouldn't be a sales tax in that regard. And also just thinking out loud, if it was built in the industrial area, those individuals would most likely frequent and go to 40 in order to grab lunch, and would most likely, and this has been a discussion in an industrial area for a long time, would it actually be contributing to the local economy here and actually shopping here? So the jobs that were created, they wouldn't necessarily be eating here in Wildwood, which then wouldn't give us any of the sales tax revenue that we'd hope to get. So you'd really be looking more so at the gross receipts. It would be pretty nominal considering. So just wanted to point that out. We don't have a property tax here in Wildwood, so the assessed valuation, even though it would be increased dramatically by adding one of these facilities, the city of Wildwood actually would not receive any benefit from that. It would remain the same, and the county would see that benefit, but not Wildwood. But just wanted to point those out, and the Department of Planning, but also Department of Administration, look forward to doing this research to give the commission here the best choice available moving forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mayor Garetano?
Yeah, I think we've had great input tonight, and this is just a public hearing for tonight. So I'm sure the department will be putting a lot of work into this to come back with a report. So I would say we can make a motion to close the public hearing.
Great, thank you. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, public hearing is now closed, and thank you. I want to thank everyone for their time and participation.
Yeah.
Next on the agenda is PZ 14-25, Chilili. Mr. Newberry.
PZ 14-25, Chilili, care of Paul Mertz, 46C, Worthington Access Drive, Maryland Heights, Missouri, 63043. A request for a conditional use permit, CUP in the FPNU floodplain non-urban residence district and NU non-urban residence district to accommodate a requested additional use of the subject property, which is located on the south side of St. Albans Road, west of State Route 100, street address 18944, St. Albans Road, St. Louis County, locator number 23Y220108, and over 5 acres in size, for the purposes of authorizing a sales room, retail and wholesale, in conjunction with the existing farm, gardens, plant nurseries, cultivated lands, and greenhouses, Ward 6.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the commission, if you'll recall from our December meeting, a motion was made, which was seconded, and a voice vote was taken to proceed forward to the letter of recommendation relating to this particular request. So tonight, the department has prepared for final consideration the letter of recommendation relating to Chilili, which is to be located on State Highway T or St. Albans Road. The department would note that this particular site has been used for plant nursery and greenhouse purposes, along with the sales room, for decades. The intent of this petitioner is to resume that operation with minimal changes. In the conditions, in conjunction with the favorable recommendation from the department, it has tried to fashion them so as any new improvements, whether it be parking spaces, greenhouses, etc., would be required to meet the underlying requirements of the non-urban resident district. Otherwise, the current situation can stay in place and not be considered non-conforming under the conditional use permit. As mentioned, the department has prepared a favorable recommendation and believes that this particular use has become part of the character of the valley, as it's been called, and certainly will continue forward, I think, under the new ownership and the same success that the old ownership had, the Belroses. So tonight before you is the final letter of recommendation, a favorable recommendation regarding the Planning and Zoning Commission granting the permit for the sales room, and that the item would then be forwarded to City Council for its receipt and filing at the beginning of February. If there are any questions or comments after a motion and second, the department would be glad to try to answer them. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Mayor Garetano.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And, I'm happy to make a motion approving the permit as recommended in the report here. And, especially considering, the time, that we had this evening with the outage. I'm happy to move forward and let's get that going there with that. We've seen a lot of positive review, and it's great to see the business there continue, the greenhouses, the FAR greenhouses that have been there for many years, long time, actually, long history. So great to see that place come to life again. Director Vunich, I'm going to make that motion, but I know that the spring season's probably coming up around the corner. Is there anything that we can do to help, make things as efficient as possible and move quickly? Is there any motion or anything as part of the motion tonight?
Actually, with your motion as proposed, that will conclude the review by the Planning and Zoning Commission. At the February 9th City Council meeting, as you know, I explained that the City Council has 15 days to exercise power of review. They have that authority to waive that 15 days, and that may be a question that would be best answered there. If the City Council waives its authority of power of review, then the permit would become effective thereafter.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to go ahead and make that motion for the approval of the conditional use permit as noted.
And Commissioner Jackson seconds. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler votes yes. Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubis,
Yes.
just confirm. Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
Mayor Garetano.
Yes.
All right,
Thank you.
motion carries. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, I don't see a PZ number, but Wayland Custom Homes, Mr. Newberry.
A request from Wayland Custom Homes, Inc., care of Mike Wayland, 338 South Kirkwood Road, Suite 105, St. Louis, Missouri, 63122-6166, that is seeking a waiver to the city's requirements that all large lot single-family subdivisions install packaged wastewater treatment plants in areas of the Wildwood community not currently served by public sanitary sewers, which, if granted, would thereby allow the use of individual household wastewater treatment systems for service on each of the proposed lots of record. This large lot single-family subdivision is being proposed upon a 51
an approximately 51-acre tract of land that is situated on the west side of Christie Avenue, south of its intersection with Manchester Road. St. Louis County locator numbers 24W610045, 24W520102, and 24W240015. Street addresses 2725, 2731, and 2799 Christie Avenue. In your non-urban residence district, proposed use, a total of 15 single-family dwellings on individual lots are being requested on the subject tract of land, each being 3 acres or greater in size, along with necessary private roadway improvements to access them. Bendick Estates Subdivision, Ward 1.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vinich?
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the commission, just to advise, this particular item tonight for your consideration relates only to whether a waiver should be granted to the petitioner for centralized wastewater treatment. The preliminary plat relating to this project were a number of the issues that were identified relative to lot size, lot density, lot configuration, setbacks, etc. That all is part of the preliminary plat report that's prepared by the department for the commission's consideration. So again, we're not making decisions relative to the lots themselves or the project in its context, but more so, will it have individual septic systems on each of the lots versus a single wastewater treatment plant? A bit of background probably would be beneficial here. And again, this is going back 30 years to the incorporation of the city. At that time, the appointed city council and appointed mayor had heard over the course of 3 months a number of concerns of residents about the process and the products of St. Louis County. One of them was that septic system failures were prevalent, and St. Louis County did little to address them. Secondly, in response to those complaints, the Planning and Zoning Commission at that time was asked to investigate an alternative. That investigation led us to Missouri Department of Natural Resources, Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services, and St. Louis County. Collectively, at that time, 30 years ago, the statistic was as follows. If there are 10 individual household treatment systems, 9 of them are not being maintained to the manufacturer's specification. Doesn't mean they were all in failure, but it meant that they all, collectively, the 9, were not functioning as designed and at some point discharging a mix of treated influent. Could be tertiary, could be primary, or even worse. That's the origin. Now, to address concerns that were voiced at the time about the cost of a plant versus individual household treatment systems, an analysis was done with manufacturers of plants and individual systems. The break point appeared to be 8. A single plant was equal to the cost of 8 systems, individual systems. And so that's the waiver component. 8 or more, it's a plant. 7 or less, it's at the discretion of the Department of Planning. So when you look at the table that's included in both of the reports, this one as well as the other to be heard next, the trend, the pattern of the Planning and Zoning Commission has been a waiver is typically granted to the plant when the density of the project is substantially less than what the underlying zoning district designation would accommodate. In this case, again, the non-urban resident district. 1 home for every 3 acres. In the case of Bendick Estates, the yield is almost at its maximum. And that's a key component in the department's consideration. The yield, the maximum yield, equates to the following. State statute as well as the local plumbing code administered by St. Louis County and adopted by the city of Wildwood basically says this: a system, an individual system is sized on the on the following basis. The number of bedrooms times 120 gallons per bedroom. As we've seen from Wayland Custom Homes as well as Lombardo Homes, their products are not small houses, 1 and 2 bedroom. So the department did an analysis, a typical 4-bedroom house, which is what we see quite frequently in the city of Wildwood. 15 or 16 homes equates to over 7,000 gallons of wastewater being generated a day. That's being disposed of on an approximately 50-acre tract of land. It's not to say the plant isn't going to treat that same amount of volume, but it's going to be in a single system out of a single pipe into the natural system. From the department's perspective, if maintenance isn't addressed on a regular basis, and if we're generating that amount of effluent, is individual systems appropriate? The next kind of item that the department investigated is just the conditions of the property. And I recognize that the Missouri Department of Natural Resources issued a report saying that the soils are suitable. But in the same report, they noted that past clay mining had been occurred on the site. Clay doesn't accommodate the free movement of effluent or groundwater. And so there are instances on this particular property where there are depressions. At first, I thought they were sinkholes, but they're remnants of the clay mining process. They also note that there are areas on the site that have high content of clay in its soil. We also know that just a short distance to the northwest, Walnut and Maple Avenues have severe problems with individual household treatment systems. Much smaller lots, but generally speaking, in the general vicinity of the property. In those 2 instances, on those 2 streets, there's a perched water table, high water table. It's at 13 inches below the surface. It affects the treatment of effluent. So the department, in its opinion, is here to provide a cautious recommendation to the commission. And that cautious recommendation is, although it's one plant, and some have said it would be unsightly and smell, the plants themselves are below grade, meaning they're at grade, and the equipment, the fields are below grade. They're fenced, so the fence does create a visual impact. And if not maintained, just like individual household treatment systems, they will have an odor. Is this the best recommendation of the department? I don't think there is a good recommendation. If we truly believe what the state and county have told us, that individual household treatment systems aren't being maintained to manufacturer specifications, and we have one plant that could fail, well, I guess I'm, again, providing you a cautious recommendation given the site-specific characteristics and the densities that's being proposed. In this instance, the department is recommending the plant versus individual household treatment system. It recognizes that Wayland Custom Homes is offered to increase the amount of individual escrow for each home, put the responsibility of maintenance on the homeowners association, and proceed forward. What I will tell you is the plants that we've had issues with, and there's been a couple that were approved early on in the first 10 years of the city, those same plants were under the guidance of the homeowners association, and they didn't follow through. I'm afraid they won't follow through here. The safety net of all of this is each year, the Missouri Department of Natural Resources is requires the submittal of an inspection report on the plants themselves. They are our safety net. That safety net, as you heard from one of the speakers on the data centers, doesn't exist. They're underfunded or understaffed, but at least it's better than nothing. And I guess that's kind of the most telling statement tonight. We've got 2 bad choices. no public entity to provide wastewater treatment like the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District. So one bad end of pipe is better than 16 or 15 or whatever the number may be. So tonight, you have a recommendation that does not support the waiver. If there are any questions or comments, the department would be glad to try to answer them at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Discussion or motion? Mayor Garatoni?
Yeah, I do have a question here regarding, I guess, what was mentioned during the petitioner speaking about the West Eden project and the, I guess, the escrow, because it sounds like that might be, in a way, a safety net to if we were to go down this path of allowing the individual septic systems. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Certainly, the West Eden situation, which is a project, large lot, single family residential development on the northeast corner of Millrose Road and State Route 100. The key determinant in the department's support of the waiver wasn't necessarily the escrow, because the escrow came out of the discussion by the Planning and Zoning Commission relative to that request. It wasn't offered by the developer. I will say the developer agreed to it immediately, and that's a positive. But in that instance, it was a 66-acre tract of land with 12 homes. The math tells you that that developer brought in a project with 10 less units than authorized by the underlying zoning district designation. I think that's the key determinant. But certainly, anything the city can do to fund homeowners associations, whether it's in town center or in the rural areas of Wildwood, that's a positive. Because typically when the developer leaves, the homeowners associations are underfunded, not prepared, and given the keys to the castle and said, you take care of it. And I want to avoid that. I think it's incumbent on the city to basically address that situation. So yes, if you are leaning toward the waiver, I think the $5,000 amount is appropriate. And I think having the HOA through the trust indenture is given greater authority to address problems, including access to the property and repair. I think that's a step in the right direction.
Commissioner Jackson? Yeah.
So we're talking a minimum of 3 acres. Is there a way this could be engineered where 10 acres per house or whatever would perk, essentially is what we're talking about? Is there a way to go in that direction?
It's a good question. I don't have the answer. And if you want that to be explored, we certainly can. But as you recall with West Eden, the state of Missouri, the Department of Natural Resources required them to share potable wells. So each pair of houses has a single well. So instead of 12 individual wells into the aquifer, there's 6, 2 served by each one. So we could certainly explore that. I don't know. Years ago, the argument that we used to hear from, let's say, institutional uses, why build 3 plants to serve a church, a school, and a business? Why don't you build one, collectively put your resources together and build one and operate it as a unit? The state has something called a continuing authority, and it scares everybody. And that, okay, I'm disposing of my wastewater in the appropriate way. The plant goes down. I know I didn't do it. Who did it? And I don't want to pay for their mistake. And so that's what we deal with.
Commissioner Helfrey?
Really?
Oh, all right. Councilman Marshall?
No questions, but I would make a motion that we would go with the department's recommendation. I can give you a long list of all the problems we've had in the past. And I think the soil is a bigger issue than whether or not it can be worked out, because just as soon as we think we have it figured out, and we had a lot of places where, oh yeah, we're going to take care of it. As soon as those initial homeowners leave, nobody wants to touch it. And then everybody has a problem and there's no place to go with it. So I think that we've learned a lot. And in this particular case with the soil, And Mr. Vunich is right. Everything up along Manchester Road, there's no predictability there. Those are in bad shape to start with. So I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Helfrey?
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I do have a question regarding soil. Are there any kind of treatments that could be made to address like the high clay content of the soil? I know we've talked in the past about amended soils, but are there any options at all where that could be explored to still keep the option of the individual systems?
So my impression, and so again, I can be corrected either by Whalen Custom Homes or Lombardo Homes, is generally speaking, they put a footprint down for where they believe the septic system would be best placed. What the department doesn't have is a more detailed soils report. We have the information from the state, Missouri Department of Natural Resources. But the problem we face is we have a custom build. So the buyer will ultimately make the decision regarding number of bedrooms, the placement of the house relative to the setbacks and frontage. And so it's a moving target until a buyer settles in and makes those decisions with the builder. But certainly, if the commission would want to delay this a couple of weeks, if we can engage one of our soil scientists that we've used in the past to help us understand, is there a better location? And maybe that's where, as Mr. Jackson mentioned, we try to direct those individual septic systems to those locations and know that we have preferable soil that will do an excellent job of treatment if minimum maintenance to the system is provided.
Thank you, Joe. I do appreciate that. And I would think if that's something that could be easily accomplished or looked at, maybe that would keep the option available to see, because you did say that they're both not great options. So which one would work better?
And I hate to say it. I mean, we've got to treat the wastewater, and the only two options that are available in the rural area are these two. Public sewer isn't. And I would certainly never encourage the city of Wildwood to take that mantle on and become a provider.
Mr. Whalen, if you want to come up to do you mind, Mr. Vunich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Joe. And I certainly understand this is about risk management. First, to answer your question, Mr. Mayor, we have done a comprehensive soil analysis. We dug test holes on every single lot. Bob Haney is our septic engineer on this project. We had to provide that geologic information to the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. And this is and you're right, there's clay everywhere in Wildwood, but there are different types of systems, traditional systems, low pressure pipe systems, drip systems, where you import soils to lay over the top of a septic field to allow for aeration and let oxygen dispose of or dissipate up to 40% of the bacteria in sewage. So these are very, very sophisticated systems. Every lot is analyzed per the house. We have a Missouri engineer that has to put his seal on it, but that work's already been done. And I had to provide that information to the Department of Natural Resources. And I would be more than happy to share that with the department and with the Planning and Zoning Commission. We're trying to manage this risk. A central system is difficult for a lot of reasons. At the end of the day, we're going to rely on a homeowners association. Contracting with a septic maintenance company, Missouri licensed maintenance company, it's pretty easy. There are many of them out there. They work all over Wildwood. They understand these systems. They know where to get the parts, and you call them today, they'll be out there tomorrow. Not the same can be said for a sophisticated treatment plant. There's only a handful of companies that can do that type of work. They typically do larger work. And if we have a problem, it's a week before you can get somebody out there, and then getting the parts and the pieces can be a big deal. I've built them before in Jefferson County. It's certainly doable. We just believe wholeheartedly, based on all the information we have, that individuals in this case are better. This is a better piece of property, and our soils engineer said it clearly, than West Eden was in terms of the soil condition. So I respectfully request an approval. I will be happy to provide all the information moving forward. We just can't see, and by the way, cost is not an issue. One of these septic systems is $25,000. There's 2 homes that are existing homes. Mrs. Bird is here tonight. She's going to stay there. She's had a septic her whole life. And then her brother's house, which is on lot 7, is on a septic system. So if we put all of these on a small treatment plant, the cost would be the same. It's not, and one might think, oh gosh, that'd be great to be on, on sewer, but we have to put it somewhere, and it's going to be in somebody's backyard. One of our property owners or one of the neighbors. So I think, if you just really quick, I don't want to take too much of your time, but if you go to 2 engineers and you say, what's better, an individual system or a central system, they'll say it depends. As long as they are maintained and installed properly, they're both fine. They have different types of risk. A centralized system is a surface discharge system. The individual systems are obviously buried. The individual systems recharge the watershed. They put nutrients into the ground. If they're properly maintained, they're and properly installed, they're every bit as environmentally friendly as a centralized system. Centralized system uses a lot more energy. It doesn't take advantage of aeration for the dissipation of bacteria like in-ground systems do. And it's a singular point of failure. So different risks, they both need to be done correctly. And abiding by Missouri Department of Natural Resources, St. Louis County Plumbing Department, we do the inspections, we escrow the funds. We've done it at West Eden so far. It's been fine. We haven't had any problems. I just think it's the best solution for everybody. And I believe wholeheartedly that it would be the easiest to maintain, the simplest to maintain, simplest to monitor, and provides the best solution moving forward for everyone. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, and I certainly appreciate your consideration.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate that, Mr. Whalen. Let's see here. Mr. Lee, did you want to follow up still?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I do appreciate the time. I just wanted to ask one, and it was partially answered by the developer here, but would love to see that information that was submitted to MDNR. So our planning department, public works department could take a look at it. And the only other question I had is regarding if there's any additional analysis that would be needed in this case to determine which would be a better approach, if that would be something that we could consult with the developer, whether or not those costs could be covered by the developer. So just wanted to add that context and make sure that the burden doesn't have to be passed on to the taxpayer. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Helfrich.
Mr. Vunich, I have 2 questions for you. Number one, Mr. Whalen just mentioned that there's 2 existing septic systems, individual septic. So if we would go forward with this, would those still be maintained as individual septic systems, or would they have to then be put onto the plant?
The department would recommend that the entirety of the lots be brought onto the system.
Okay. And then, so we've decided collectively that there's no good answer to this, I think. And so I voted the way I voted because I defer to your expert information. Expertise, yes, because you deal with these things every day and I don't. But then Mayor Garitano said a couple things that I'm wondering, should we postpone this in order to have more dialogue with this development? Or is that what I'm understanding that you would like to have done? So I seconded the motion. Do I need to change my motion or amend it in order for that to happen?
I think you can just motion to postpone.
No,
There's a motion and a second on the.
technically on Robert's rules, if we're going to follow
Amendment,
it.
yeah.
Well, we can table this.
Wait, I'm asking her a
Well,
question.
a motion to postpone is a primary motion, so if there is a motion, it circumvents the one that was made by Mr. Marshall and yourself. And certainly, having the information that's available relative to the analysis done by the developer that was provided to the state of Missouri would be beneficial. And certainly, as Mr. Lee mentioned, we can have it reviewed by the city engineer and his team and the Department of Public Works. And we can certainly review it ourselves, Ms. Ripto, Mr. Newberry, and I. And if push comes to shove, it sounds like Mr. Whalen would be glad to fund the engagement of a soil scientist, an independent soil scientist, to help us.
So I am going to make a motion to postpone then, because I'll be honest with you, if candidly, I was not aware that there were two existing septic systems. I guess that was my error, that they would have to be then undone and put onto a full one. So I would make the motion to postpone so that maybe you all could come together a little bit more.
I'd be happy to second that. Yep.
Mr. Chair, just one item. I'll defer to Mr. Marshall.
It's just discussion standpoint, we need a date postponed to.
Oh,
Yeah.
how about 30 days?
Well,
30 days.
2 weeks or 6 weeks.
Okay.
I'd like to have it back on February 2nd, given our.
Okay, let's do
meeting
that.
Was on December 1st and now we're at January 20th. We've almost had 7 weeks of break. I'd like to maybe get some momentum behind this if we could.
Okay,
So-
let's do it for February, please. Postpone until February. Thank you. Thank you.
All those in favor of postponing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are postponed and hopefully you guys can work something out. All right, next on the agenda, same thing from Lombardo Homes. Mr. Newberry?
A request from Lombardo Homes of Missouri LLC for Research Park Drive, Suite 130, St. Charles, Missouri 63304-5638, that is seeking a waiver to the city's requirements that all large lot single-family subdivisions install packaged wastewater treatment plants in the areas of Wildwood community not currently served by public sanitary sewers, which, if granted, would thereby allow the use of individual household wastewater treatment.
Hold on one second. If you're going to talk, can you leave the room, please? All right, go ahead.
Where did I stop?
Think these are somewhere around individual household wastewater.
The use of individual household wastewater treatment systems for service on each of the proposed lots of record. This large lot single-family subdivision is being proposed upon an approximately 55-acre tract of land located on the south side of St. Albans Road, State Route T, west of its intersection with State Route 100, FPNU Floodplain Non-Urban Residence District and NU Non-Urban Residence District. Street addresses 18604 and 18700 St. Albans Road, St. Louis County. Locator numbers 24X440014 and 24Y640022. Proposed use: a total of 16 single-family dwellings on individual lots are being requested on the subject tract of land, each being 3 acres or greater in size, along with the necessary private roadway improvements to access them, along with common ground area with visitor parking spaces. The reserve at St. Albans Subdivision, Ward 6.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vinich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the commission, as I started the presentation relating to the last item, this particular discussion is not relative to the plat itself for the 16 lots. This is, again, focused only on whether there would be 16 individual household treatment systems or a single plant. From the perspective of the department in terms of equity relative to the decision-making process of the city regarding this matter, if there is a discussion with Mr. Whalen relative to solutions to the concerns of the department regarding the plant versus treatment systems. A 2-week postponement in this matter may be justified. So as we're treating both parties relative to the request and the similarities, Mr. Whalen's is 15 home sites on 51 acres. Lombardo is 16 on 58. So again, from the perspective of the department, if there's research that's available from Lombardo Homes, Whalen Custom Homes, that would lead to the best recommendation from the department and the best action of the commission, a 2-week postponement here may be again justified.
Just on a technicality, the paper says 55 and you said 58.
Pardon me. Going from memory, and that's always risky.
Okay, so it's 55.
55.
Commissioner Helfrey.
So I respect that you say equity, but to me, they're not equitable. They're two totally different properties, two totally different land areas, and I don't think that they are the same. That they should both be considered the same. I think they're very different land, and so I don't think that they are the same. They should both be postponed.
Certainly, and the commission has complete authority in this regard. The department is, we may have two types of different apples, but they appear to be apples to the department, so to speak.
But this one looks, well, first of all, this property we've had in discussion of backing up against that creek and it being flooding all the time. And I think that it's a completely different animal. And I would, my vote would be that we accept the department's recommendation of not allowing individual. And that's my recommendation. My vote is my motion. There you go. I got it out. Sorry. To accept the planning's motion.
Is there a second on the motion?
I didn't quite get to that yet, but so just a couple of things. First, obviously the department is acutely aware of the floodplain component associated with the unnamed tributary. From the perspective of the department, if you look at the preliminary development plan, preliminary plat, you will see that they've moved the home sites as close to Highway T as possible, meaning the 50-foot setback from that proposed private street that would parallel it. I will also tell you that in past experience, agricultural land is generally good land for wastewater treatment. So a high content of clay on Christie Road versus soil that's been tilled for corn and other agricultural products, there's a distinct difference in the quality of the soil relative to its potential. It's counterbalanced by the fact that we have a tributary that flows from east to west, so from Route 100 into residential areas. We have floodplain, and for all intents and purposes, as was described, when you look at the preliminary plat, you can see that there are drainage areas that finger into the proposed lots, and well, from directional standpoint, from Highway T north to south. So it's a watery environment, which is again the primary reason that the department decided one plant protected from the floodplain in the common ground area is preferable than, again, 16 on the edge of the floodplain and near other drainage tributaries. So the department, again, in this instance, is recommending the waiver not be supported by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
And I made a motion to support that.
So I haven't seen a second yet. Yeah. All right. Second by Councilman Marshall. So I guess my question is, where where does the creek start? Like, does it start before, like, on past 100, or?
From the review of aerial photography, this particular unnamed tributary starts on the east side of Route 100, but this property is near its headwaters.
Okay.
And so the amount of flow in the creek, I'm not saying during severe storms, is generally not substantial, like a lot of our tributaries and creek. But again, as you can see, there is a defined tributary and there is defined floodplain associated with it. And that's always a consideration in any recommendation.
Right. And so what do we know what the most of how much of this land has ever been inundated, I guess? Like, do we have?
I don't have historical photography, but if Mr. DeHart, he's lived across the street for so many years, he may have photographs that he'd be willing to provide so he can make that determination. What the department will do as part of the preliminary plat will always depend on the Department of Public Works, which has reviewed the preliminary plat to ensure that the floodplain regulations of the federal government are met. And we do that because if we don't follow those regulations, federal flood insurance is at risk.
Right.
And we can't have that happen.
All right, Mayor Garetano?
Yeah, Joe, I have a couple of questions here. I know the question before the commission tonight pertains to the sewage, but I guess, they were never seeking a rezoning of this land because it meets the criteria for non-urban as it is. So the 3-acre lot rule is met and therefore they don't have to seek a rezoning, basically.
Yes, the 3-acre minimums are provided. As I note in the report, the majority of the lots are around 3 acres, but they are over 3 acres or 3 acres. And there are a couple that are larger, obviously. And the larger lots appear to be where the drainage fingers come from T to the south.
And that shaded area that you're showing on the screen, is that the area that is prone to flooding, or can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, the area to the south of the preliminary plat, those are topographic lines. And when the steeper the slope, the more topographic lines there are, and the darker the image becomes. So from the creek south, that's a steep hill that rises up to a ventral ridge. And so that's an area that the developer does not intend to disturb at all. In fact, if you look at the tree preservation information, their intent is not to remove any trees. It's, for the most part, a zero loss scenario. They intend to develop in the agricultural area where trees have been voided already.
Okay. So basically everything that's shaded is the preservation area.
That's the intent, at least if it's not shown, it will be by the time we get to the preliminary plat. So those springs, the drainage, the culvert pipes that come from across Highway T, those will all be areas that will be protected under either the Natural Resource Protection Standards, floodplain regulations of the city, or the Tree Preservation and Restoration Code.
Commissioner Lucas?
How much authority does the city have over homeowners associations?
Very limited, and that's intentional. They have private restrictions. Private restrictions are often more restrictive than the city's regulations. And so some of their restrictions we can enforce because they set minimum square footages for homes, which have been argued in courts, and they have been determined to be discriminatory when cities do them. But they're private restrictions, so we kind of stay out of it for the most part.
If a homeowners association is saddled with the obligation to take care of a septic system and they choose not to, or they don't have the funds, or the city is handcuffed in intervening in that, correct?
Well, for example, if we were to create like in the case of West Eden, we established a set of requirements. Treatment levels, tertiary, the highest, the escrow. Then that went, your recommendation on the waiver goes to city council. City council, if it approves the waiver, does it by resolution. And as part of the resolution, we make sure that those commitments are law, so to speak. And so, yes, we can enforce those. And the plumbing code, St. Louis County, City of Wildwood, treatment systems fail, we can enforce that because it's a public health hazard.
So if a septic system were to fail and it's not being addressed and it's a public health system, do we allow people to live in that condition, or do we have any authority to make them move out until it's corrected? Or
we have not vacated anyone from their home. I suspect we won't. What we try to do is identify the problem, bring the resources to the problem for the homeowner, and have it repaired or replaced. And we've done that quite a bit over the course of 30 years.
Commissioner Helping.
So when I made my motion, it was to support the planning department's decision to only allow a single septic system for the entire neighborhood. And as I go back through these notes, it says that part of it is designated non-urban residence district and some is designated floodplain. And we have, since this particular property, and actually even before this property was on, I think even back when we talked about the Ameren Tower across the road last year, we have had residents come in here and state that this area has flooded, that the types of rains that we get now are not percolating rains. Sometimes they're swift and massive. And so once again, I think that the city is spot on with this particular property, stating to have one system that you said was going to be situated in a place where it was protected from all that.
So our regulations don't address the 500-year floodplain. Few cities, I don't know of any that do. Maybe Mr. Brown, our director of public works, does. But from a 100-year floodplain, we require the low sill, so to speak, that low opening to be 2 feet above 2 feet of freeboard above that 100-year elevation. We've used that across the board for 30 years, and we've never had an issue. That 2 feet doesn't sound like much, but it makes a world of difference.
So, okay, so I stick with my motion. All right, thank you, Mr. Vinich.
Can I?
Mayor Carutano.
Yeah, just I'm thinking back of when we've had issues with flooding, and I think back on Route 109 by Old State. If I recall, the Radcliffe subdivision, they have a facility for sewage, and Hamilton Creek is right by there. We've had a flood over 109 right by Old State. Has that been impacted by the
Certainly
flooding?
has. In fact, the system has been flooded or inundated multiple times, which means the wastewater from that 100+ residential subdivision isn't being treated. It's being discharged into the floodwaters and carried downstream. Now, there's a great amount of volume in association with those floodwaters, which helps dilute it. But certainly, yes. But that plant was placed there under St. Louis County regulation.
So you're saying then because it was placed under St. Louis, it's going to be different with this instance here?
I will tell you one thing, if Mr. Brown does anything, he takes very seriously our floodplain regulations and the requirements from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And we sweat these because the responsible party at the end isn't the developer, it isn't the homeowner. They're going to come back to the city and say, you approved this and I'm being flooded. What went wrong? And we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you requesting an extension earlier
Well,
Would you like one?
I don't know if I like one. I just think if there is information that can be developed from the other proposal that would be beneficial to this and help make a better decision for us all, then I think that's worth a postponement for 2 weeks. However, the motion on the floor, and the department won't argue that motion because its report says no to the waiver.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think unless there's an opinion by the petitioner that they would like to get a chance at getting a decision tonight, being that our meeting is later than usual due to the holiday, then I think 2 weeks out from the next Planning and Zoning Commission, I mean, I'm always for more data so that we can make the best decision possible. So if there's no objection, I would be okay with doing that so we can get that data.
So, Mr. Mayor, you're making a motion to postpone to the February meeting?
Were you making one already, or were you?
I just asked the question, but I'm supporting what you're
Yeah.
saying.
So, and then, yeah, then that would be fine. I mean, you started off by it. That's why I feel like if we're doing that, we might as well do it for both.
And Commissioner Jackson, second. Sure. All right. All those in favor of postponing, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. I think I heard 4.
Yeah, well, for a motion to postpone, you don't need 6. It's the majority seated. So we actually probably need to do a roll call to
That's
make sure
fair.
that we
Yeah.
get the folks on Zoom to participate.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
So my question, Mr. Vunich, is the soil problem with the clay is definitely one that we need more information on. But other than the fact that in your recommendation, there is no clay issues here. So it's totally different. And I mean, if you think the postpone's right, it just seems to me that you guys did a lot of work and it's a totally different issue. So that's the only reason
I will tell you, probably on that steep slope, there's a lot of clay and rock, but from the perspective of the department and being in areas of Wildwood where there is agriculture, usually the soils are free of a lot of the rock and clay, and they're more silt and loam, and they can handle wastewater treatment better than the others.
Great, thanks. That was it.
All right. So, Mr. Lee.
I was just going to add in with the roll before we do the roll call vote that the Department of Public Works could take a look. We do have the 5-year floodplain maps integrated into our GIS software, and we could take a look at the property and do a preliminary evaluation prior to this vote that would come up in February. So just something our Public Works Department could do at the direction of the commission here tonight to provide a little bit more data.
Yeah, to follow up on that, Mr. Lee, I know we've had a few pretty intense rains the last few years. So you have a guideline of what's been inundated with some of those rains then? Is that what you're saying?
In that location, not so much. But we do have the 5-year floodplain that can be overlaid with any property within the city of Wildwood. We take what FEMA provides to us, and then we overlay that into a GIS database. So it's an interactive mapping tool. We layer that in, and then we can analyze this specific parcel to see where in the floodplain it lies, and then give you guys direct information on, per FEMA's recommendation, what we would think would be the outcome after evaluation of where on this property is it in the 100-year floodplain, is it the 500, and what portions of the property are part of the recommendation.
Okay, so you're saying 500-year, right? Rather than 5-year.
Yep, the 500. Yeah, the 500-year floods. They give us 5-year out to show what would be. They updated each time for 500, 100. All the way up to 500 years.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, if we're going to pull data and it's going to be postponed, then will you as the city reach out to the people that live around that area that have been talking about this area for the past year and a half and ask them what they have observed with this property and the flooding in the creek, so that we have actual data as opposed to something that is an overlay and am I making sense?
It's certainly a firsthand experience versus an
Correct.
engineered model.
Right.
I certainly would reach out to Mr. DeHart. As I say, he's lived across the street. His family's owned the property, so he may have the best experience.
Yeah.
Certainly those folks downstream.
Yes, I'm trying to find her name. She mentioned it. She was pretty
Ms.
vocal.
Henson? Ms. Henson with KSDK, actually. We can
And
help.
Mr. Lawson, I remember them from the last stuff talking about the creek floodwaters and stuff. So, I mean, if you're going to gather information, I would respectfully request that you speak to the people in the area who actually observe the actual.
The department will do its best, but remember, we're a small department and we have a lot to do over the next couple of weeks. You're part of it as part of the master plan, a couple of meetings, things like that. So we will do our best to engage the surrounding neighbors. Can't guarantee we'll get all, but we'll try to get as many as possible.
All right.
Thanks. That's all I can ask.
All right. With that, let's do a roll call vote on the postponement.
Commissioner Hillfrey,
No.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler votes yes. Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubis,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
Mayor Garitano. Thank you.
Motion is postponed. All right. Next on the agenda, PZ 28-21. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A recommendation report of the Site Plan Subcommittee of the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the Site Development Plan, SDP, and related items for PZ 28-21, Ashley Grove, Cypress Real Estate, LLC, care of Daniel Stegman, 16100 Swingley Ridge Road, Suite 210, Chesterfield, Missouri, 63017, a 5-acre parcel of ground that is located on the east side of West Avenue, south of its intersection with Manchester Road. R3, 10,000 square foot resident district with a planned residential development overlay district, PRD. Street address, 2623 Center Avenue, St. Louis County, locator number 24V 420032. Approved use, a total of 11 new single-family dwellings, along with the retention of the existing residents, thereby totaling 12 units, with all being on individual lots of record and including street improvements, common ground, and required public space areas. This particular property is located in Ward 8.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, before you tonight is a recommendation from the Site Plan Subcommittee regarding the matter that was just read into the record. Again, this is a new subdivision on a 5-acre parcel in Town Center for 11 new homes with the retention of an existing home. The property recently went through a rezoning process as well as the establishment of a planned residential development overlay district, or PRD, to accommodate the new home sites. Just to highlight a few of the major characteristics of the development, as depicted on the site development plan, the current pond on the property is planned to be dewatered and removed to accommodate the new home sites. The new public street is in an west-east orientation, bisects the site. It does provide vehicular connectivity to both Center Avenue and West Avenue, which was an action of the of the City Council with the approval of the zoning change and the overlay district. Each dwelling will have side entry garages to accommodate appropriate parking ratios for the dwellings. There's also parking allowed on the south side of the street. It's restricted on the north side of the public street. And then with the elevation or with the orientations of the garages, the petitioner did provide elevations of the homes as requested, and that was included as part of the packet. The stormwater management is through a series of inlets and pipes leading to a basin that's in the northwest corner of the site. Around that basin is part of the public space, which is a trail that goes around the basin, as well as the public space has an extension of the trail on the south boundary of the site all the way to West Avenue. And lastly, the landscape plan provides the required 20-foot planting buffer along the entire southern boundary of the site, as well as plantings on 2 individual lots that provide screening between the new homes and the existing dwellings. The Site Plan Subcommittee met on December 1st 2025, and at its conclusion, directed the department to prepare a favorable recommendation regarding the site development plan package and the related materials. The rationales for the recommendation are outlined in the report, but they note compliance with the town center plan, the site-specific governing ordinance, the city's zoning and subdivision regulations. Overall, the new subdivision will be engaging, desirable, and a high-quality addition to this part of town center and Wildwood as a whole. And just before concluding the presentation, the department would want to note that there were a few items noted in the report that are forthcoming. That being the completed lighting plan, as well as some additional information regarding the streetscape components, specifically the street signs that weren't provided, but will be required conditionally upon the approval of this site development plan. So with that, the department's presenting a favorable recommendation from the site plan subcommittee for the Ashley Grove subdivision. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Newberry. Discussion or a motion? Commissioner Holiday? Oh. All right, I'll second. All right. Motion by Commissioner Helfrey, second by Commissioner Rubis. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Depler.
Yes.
Commissioner Depler votes yes. Commissioner Jackson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rubis?
Yes.
Commissioner Helfrey?
Yeah.
Chair Beatty?
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall?
Yes.
And Mayor Garitano. Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Stepler, if you don't mind just casting your vote again, you weren't on our video. It's my fault.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. And then let's see here. Next, Mr. Newberry, this recommendation report on Hollow Hills.
Recommendation report of the Department of Planning to the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the preliminary plat Hills Hollow Estates subdivision that has been submitted to the city of Wildwood for consideration and action on a large lot single-family subdivision that is being proposed upon an approximately 31-acre tract of land located on the northwest corner of Pond Road and State Route 100. Street addresses 1855 and 1871 Pond Road and 2005 Linda Jane Lane. St. Louis County locator numbers 23W610101, 23W610110, and 23W520086. The property has a zoning district designation of the NU non-urban residence district. Proposed use, a total of 8 lots are planned as part of this residential subdivision, along with stormwater management improvements, public space items, and infrastructure additions for access purposes. Ward 1.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vinich?
Mr. Chair, thank you again. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department has prepared for your consideration tonight a recommendation regarding the preliminary plat and all related items associated with it. Those related items include the landscape plan and other information relating to the site. The site, as Mr. Newberry identified, is located on the northwest corner of Pond Road and Route 100. It's 31 acres in size, and the intent by the developer is to develop it with 8 3-acre or greater sized lots. The lot layout is now depicted on your screens and behind you on the wall. The 8 lots will be served by a single cul-de-sac street that will be built to the city's rural roadway standards and meet Metro West Fire Protection District requests relative to street width. I mentioned that because the rural roadway standards only require a 20-foot width, whereas the fire district has requested a minimum of 26 feet, which will require restricted parking on both sides. That is a departure from our rural roadway standards, but understandable relative to concerns about response times during emergencies that may occur at any of the 8 lots. There are 2 distinctive features associated with the property. There is a tributary that parallels Pond Road that is near the front portion of the property, that near Pond Road. And then there is a substantial and wide ridge that defines what I would consider the westernmost portion. As you can see, the majority of the homes are located in that ridge area, and 2 are located to the east of the tributary. In reviewing the preliminary plat, the department notes that compliance is achieved in terms of lot size, lot configurations, compliance to the natural resource protection standards, as well as the tree preservation and restoration code. I would note that it is a large lot, single-family subdivision with 3-acre or greater sized lots, consistent with the pattern in its vicinity. In fact, many of the properties in its vicinity are larger than 3 acres. But again, this is consistent with the underlying zoning district designation, which is the non-urban resident district. In reviewing this particular item, the department did note the road situation, the increased width associated with it, but the department would note also that the developer is providing stormwater management facilities to address the extent of site disturbance and impervious surface. The department would also note that the petitioner is providing a generous dedication of public space that is highlighted on the image by the dashed red line. That area is approximately 1 acre in size and will parallel what the department hopes will be a future multiple-use trail that will begin at Community Park and head west at least to State Route T, Route 100, and Millrose Road to provide eventual access to Rockwoods Reservation. Very much in the future, but we're building a piece at a time. 2 items the department would want to emphasize is that the petitioner is proposing to remove 15 grand trees under the formula that was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission when the code was changed. The petitioner is proposing to replace those at the rate that's required. So 125 trees must be planted, and that is what is being proposed. Actually, 126 per the count of the landscape legend. And finally, there is in the opinion of the department, a substantial amount of grading for 8 lots on 31 acres. I would emphasize to the developer as well as to the commission, ultimately, the approval is based upon the minimum amount of lot disturbance necessary to accommodate the building permit. So rest assured, we'll be analyzing each of these 8 lots to minimize what you see, but what you see does meet the requirements of our grading code, those minimum standards. But we think, and I believe Mr. Hill believes he can do better once he starts selling the homes to the buyers and the customization process concludes. So tonight, you have a favorable recommendation regarding this 8-lot subdivision on a 31-acre parcel of ground in the non-urban residential area of the city of Wildwood. If there are any questions regarding the department's recommendation or the items included in the packet of information, we'd be glad to try to answer them at this time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vinich. Discussion or motion? Motion by Commissioner Helfrey.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right. Second by Commissioner Rubis. All right. Any further discussion?
Thank you again.
All right. Seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubis,
Yes.
Commissioner Hilfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler votes yes, Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
and Mayor Garitano. Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right. That looks like we've made it to the end.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Helfrey. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your help tonight. We appreciate it.